Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and this is Create Your Own Cozy. Guys, I am so excited for this week's video. I have the honor of doing a collaboration with my friend Sonnet from Sonnet's Garden Blooms. If you do not know who she is, go check her out on YouTube and on Facebook. She is an amazing creative that has 3 booths, does 2 videos a week on her channel, and is starting to do some more content on Facebook. Just go check her out. I started out as a YouTube fan and am so excited to be part of her creative network group, where a bunch of us creatives get together on a regular basis over Zoom and talk about our challenges and what our plans are. And I had the pleasure of meeting Sonnet in person a couple weeks ago at Creative Con in Jacksonville. I picked her up from the airport, we went straight to the thrift store, and the rest is history. And next week's video, we both picked 5 items from the Goodwill in Jacksonville. I had a little bit of an advantage because I had an SUV to bring the stuff home. She had to fit everything in her carry-on, but she still got some pretty great things. So I can't wait to see what she does with those items. So if you are visiting me for the first time from Sonnet's page, I just wanted to say welcome. I'm so glad you're here. On this channel, I just opened my very own resellers vendor booth in March of this year. So I'm taking you guys along on that journey. I've always been a furniture upcycler. I've always wanted to have my own booth. And now I'm getting into the thrifting, the finding things, and the upcycling, and I'm bringing you along on that journey. If that is something you're interested in, and if you enjoy this video, I'd love it if you would subscribe, hit that notification bell to all so that you don't miss any of my videos. And if you enjoy this video and this collaboration, make sure you like this video and tell me what your favorite item was. Guys, don't forget to check out Sonnet's video. I'm going to put that link in the description below, and let's get started. For the first project, I got this really cool looking shelf for $4.99. It looked like it was from a nice little shop where they did one-of-a-kind things, but sisters, although I have 3 girls, I don't exactly want something that says sisters on it, so I tried to kind of sand it by hand. For those of you who are new here, this is Henry, and he has an aversion to all things craft noises. He is fine with thunderstorms, but sanding, he has to come over and see what in the world is wrong with me. So I tried to do it just with a hand sander because I really wanted to keep the finish, but it didn't quite work. So I went outside. I believe I used 180 grit just to kind of get the letters off. I was gonna try to do a paint just on this bottom portion to see if I could get it to match, and I wanted all the letters to be gone. What I ended up doing is using Sweet Pickins milk paint in the color Window Pane. If you've never used this before, it's basically a 50-50 ratio of warm water to the powder, and you mix it up really well. About a 50-50 ratio. You can play with it depending on the consistency that you want, but you really want to blend that so that there's no clumps. And I just added a little bit more because I didn't quite get to the top. And then after you do this, I usually wait about 10 minutes to kind of let it thicken up. The idea, it's supposed to be the consistency of a runny milkshake. And after 10 minutes, I grab this stuff and just use a chip brush and put it pretty heavily over the surface. Now, the thing about milk paint is you never really know how it's going to chip and how it's going to peel. So for example, on this project, it stuck pretty well, but because there was cracking before, I did add some heat to this and it ended up cracking again. So I did a similar, I liked the way it was, but I wanted it to all match. So I did a similar crackly, dirty-ish finish. And you will see here in a minute, Henry also is not a fan of the hairdryer. And he had to be right by my side just to make sure that I was okay, because apparently to him, sometimes my crafting is super dangerous. Anyway, back to the project. I did 2 coats of this milk paint. And when you mix up this paint, you do need to use it all because it will dry and harden and not be able to be used later. So you mix up a little bit at a time. The more heat you use on it, the more crackling and peeling it can do. And I'm super happy with the finish that I'm getting here. Now, the milk paint does have a powdery type, almost like a chalk-like paint. So it's important that you do, if you're going to use a transfer, I put this clear mat under where the transfer was going to be, and you can see kind of the finish difference. You don't want to put the transfer directly on the milk paint because it's like putting a sticker on a dusty surface. So I got this transfer from, I'm trying to use up my IOD brocante transfers and just doing projects with the end. I'm finding the middle, using the grid system to kind of make sure it was very straight. The good thing is, because I did have the sealer down, I lightly put it down and realized I wanted the words to go down a little bit further. So I was able to peel it up since I had not done any of the transfers. Sometimes you've got this space to move it around and sometimes you don't. Again, if you have some type of a top coat, that you will be able to do that a lot easier. So I readjusted it, then I used the tool that came with the transfer to kind of peel back the transfer. Then I used the plastic to burnish it in so that it becomes one with the project. And I am going to use a 220 grit just to make the transfer look a little older and like it's been there forever. But now I need to seal my milk paint, and I decided to use a dark wax to seal it because I wanted all those little cracks and stuff to kind of stand out. So you can see the Sweet Pickins dark wax. It doesn't muddle your white, but look at those cracks. You can see them so well. So I'm super happy with how this one turned out. What do you guys think? My mom's neighbors always give us fresh eggs from their chickens, and my parents are about to get chickens of their own. So I wanted to have something a little cuter than this see-through plastic thing on my counter, but had a lot of wood in my kitchen already. So decided instead of having, I don't know if you knew this, but like fresh chicken eggs, you're supposed to keep them not in the refrigerator. So I decided to do milk paint over this because milk paint in the Sweet Pickins wax, it is food grade, which means you can put food on it and it is not going to get toxins in your food. So 2 coats of milk paint on this little egg holder, and you can see when you're putting it over, this is probably a waxed wood, right? There's some type of sealer on it. I got it from the thrift store for $4, but there's some type of sealer on it. I did 2 coats of the milk paint over the top, and you cannot control how much it chips. This one wanted to chip a lot. It's kind of the fun thing, like when you use these on pieces of furniture, you can make stuff look old so easily. So I'm using a baby wipe here to do a little bit of wet distressing to this and kind of control where some of the age is, getting the flakes off, and then I'm just going to use a clear Sweet Pickins wax. If I wanted it to be less chippy, I could have added this extra bond to it. I'm going to hold on to that for when I do some furniture. But here I'm showing you the different types of waxes. There's the clear and the dark wax from Sweet Pickins. And for the egg thing, I'm just going to use the clear wax, and that will seal it in. Again, this is food grade, so you can use this on a cutting board or charcuterie board, or this particular thing. I don't know that toxins would go through the shells of the eggs, but I did not want to take any chances. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. Let me know. Do you guys think it is better? There's a part of me that thought maybe I should just keep it wood and white wax it, but I went with it and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. You guys, this next project was kind of a doozy. I think I paid around $5.99 for it. In hindsight, I feel like Sonnet might have been laughing a little bit to herself. Like, who picks something with that much glitter on it? In fact, we went and we had lunch and I had glitter on my face after putting this in my vehicle. So that was kind of a premonition of things to come. I got the glass out and then I tried washing it with Dawn dish soap and this glitter did not go anywhere. So I went outside with 80 grit sandpaper. It's one of those things that you're like, what in the world did I get myself into? I went through 3 different pieces of sandpaper because whatever glue they glued this on here with, did not want to move, but it was going to be disruptive to how I finished it. So I sat outside. Look, you can see how that glue is kind of gooped up and I needed to sand through all of it. I sat outside on a nice morning. It was 92 degrees. You can see that I do eventually get it off, but it takes a hot minute. And I'm sitting outside covered in sweat and glitter. I sent Sonnet a text saying, I feel like there's a t-shirt out there talking about sweat and glitter, but that was me. I was covered in it. I went and took a shower and then got back to this project. I am using the Sweet Pickens milk paint again. I really wanted this old lantern look. I loved the kind of lavender beige color underneath. It did not stay on the top, but I kind of faked it. So I lightly covered the bottom with the milk paint and I heavily covered the top with the milk paint since it was the raw wood underneath. I sanded it down with 220 just so you can kind of see the wood grain come through it so it looks old, and then I used some dark wax over the top of it. And although I wanted to quit, I am so glad that I did not, because I feel like this piece turned out better than I thought it would, and I'm so glad that I was able to take something that was trash and turn it into some really fun decor that I can sell in my booth. The Sweet Pickens milk paint is something that you can find locally. They have retailers around the country, and there are a number of online vendors and YouTubers that sell it on their websites as well. Guys, I love a good cloche. This little set was $3.99, which I thought was totally worth it just for the glass cloche top. And originally I was going to cut some wood for the bottom and do something new. And I was like, well, you know what? let's try to use this bottom piece. It had this marble part that wouldn't come off, so I washed this in the sink, and I picked up some of the new DIY cottage paint. I got the color Gray Skies. Sonnet said this is a good neutral. I love me some neutral. This is a good neutral to use, and that she just loved this color. And then I had this a while ago, this square brush, this Zebra square brush. I believe I got it at Lowe's or Home Depot. I know they sell it online and like at Hobby Lobby as well, but it would allow me to paint neatly around the marble. I know I can rub off anything that I get on the marble, and you can see I made a mess right there. But I do 2 coats of this paint. The cool thing about this new type of paint is it does have a top coat already built in. I'm used to using paint like that, but this did behave a little differently than the farmhouse paints that I'm used to using. I decided that this needed to use some of my scrap IOD transfers just in the little spot where the little cheese knife goes, and really loved how this red went with the blue skies. The white was a safe choice, but I went with some red. I'm finding my inner Sonnet and adding some color to my life. I'm so crazy, I know. So I went ahead, and since there is a top coat built into this paint, I just had to wait for this paint to dry, and then I applied the transfer over the top of that. But since this is a place where the cheese knife will be going, I did take it outside and sprayed some poly on top of it. And then I went over the whole thing with the 220 grit sandpaper, which softened the poly a little bit, and it did etch a little bit into the transfer, but in my opinion, it just made it look more vintage, and I am completely happy with the results. I went to go find some of my goat cheese, since we're dairy free in this house, to stage this with, and of course we're out. So lemons it's gonna have to be. What do you guys think of this one? We are on our 5th and final project, and I got to bring home this chair for $4.99 because I had a big vehicle and decided to go ahead and use the DIY Gray Skies paint on it. At first, I'm not going to lie, when I opened it up, I was like, you know what? This is like some of the grays that I've seen before. But as it started to dry, there was this blue undertone, this almost lavender undertone, and even my husband came out from a break from work and said, that is a really cool color. So it's definitely a color that I have not personally used before. I love the color, and I'm loving how this paint, I said before that this paint behaved a little differently than some of the other paints with the top coat already built in. The first part is I feel like it was easier to smooth out than some of the stuff that I'd used before. It definitely behaves differently than the normal DIY clay-based paint. 2 coats was appropriate for this chair, but I'm not used to how the sheen of the final coat is a little more glossy than I'm used to. I'm used to a nice like matte finish, and the sheen of this was just a little glossier than I'm used to. Now I'm getting used to it. I like it. I like the way it went on, and I like the final product. So it's a learning process, but I would definitely give these paints a try. It's the Jamie Ray Vintage color, cottage colors with the DIY paint. There's some beautiful colors right up my alley, so I'm really happy that I gave this a try. I was originally going to try to sand back and get some of this brown to come through, but I really didn't like how that looked. I thought that the brown was a little too orange, so I decided to just leave it as is. No glaze. I was thinking about doing like a black wax over it, but decided I like the color that it is. I'm happy with this, and just for the record, Sonnet does sell DIY products and IOD products on her website. Please go support her. If you don't have a local vendor, she does ship. If you have a local vendor, stick with them. You don't have to pay for shipping. But if you are on the lookout for someone to get these products from, don't forget Sonnet's website. And I'm really excited about this chair. Tempted to keep it at home, but I'm probably going to put it in my booth and see how it does. There were some holes that I never covered up, so I just put some air dry clay in them and put one coat of paint over them, and they covered them right up. So, what did you guys think? Did you guys have a favorite? I think my favorite had to be that lantern that started out with the glitter because it had the furthest way to go. There's something so redemptive about finding someone's piece of trash and turning it into something better than it probably was in its original state. I love applying that same idea to my life and knowing that it's never too late to reinvent yourself and that you can always be better today than you were yesterday. So guys, thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to check out Sonnet's video. And if you're here from Sonnet's channel, thank you for coming, and I will see you guys in next week's video. Bye friends.